All right, it's Wayne here again. We're going to take a look at Byron Nelson's swing. Again, it's not an optimum comparison of sides, but we've got a driver swing on one side and an iron swing on the other. The swing on the left was taken in a challenge golf match with Ken Venturi against, I think it was Player and Palmer, and Byron was probably in his later 50s or mid 50s, but played very well in the match. Now, so I've got my lines drawn, you've got the shaft plane. You can see that definitely like to pull the club inward, well underneath the shaft plane, a lot like early Nicklaus. The head stays at the level that it started at, and at the top of the swing even lifts just slightly. You will see a lot of, again, depth in the right, much more so than the left, a lot like Player's swing. So you see the right hip end up behind the box. Now, Byron wasn't big on cocking his wrists early. He had a lot of drag on the backswing. So normally by the time he would get to where his left arm is parallel, the club would only be up about 45. And when he let it go to the top, his wrist was fairly flat, so the club would get a little crossed and it wouldn't look particularly cocked, quite unlike Hogan's swing. You can see, if you were looking at this from this iron swing from the front, that the elbow, the right arm, you would be able to see clearly above the left. So this is what we would have to call a crossed club at the top, not on the plane. But watch what happens next as Byron will lower himself and drop the club very quickly. There's the shaft now. His head comes a little bit off the line. He stays very deep, and of course there's the magic move, the hands back into the circle or even just under it. And in this case, what Nelson liked to feel was he was swinging straight down the line, so he tended to drive his right knee under him toward the target, which would buckle his left knee and give him that little extra dip at the end. When most guys were coming up, he was still working down. But in the forward swing, you can see the compression move quite evident, lowering himself quite a bit, maybe 5 or 6 inches by the time he hit the ball, and then staying down there with that knee movement. Now on the front view here, you can see that we're looking at a fair amount, maybe half a head of right movement. The left hip has come off out of the box, so this is pretty classically loaded into the right side, which is a little bit more unlike some of the other guys that we'll see, such as Hogan or Snead or Woods or Palmer or some of the other ones. Not quite as much right movement, but Nelson had a lot of load to the right. In the forward swing, the great forward drive of the lower body all the way over to here. You can see that the head never really quite recovers. Now the ball is, you can see it's a little bit back of left heel, so he could probably gain a little altitude by staying a little more behind it. And there's the head drop into the impact area. Now when the knees drive forward like that, you can see the left knee, instead of straightening, will buckle a little bit. The hips will momentarily stop and then come up and forward in the end. So that gave him kind of his signature, what they would call a caddy dip. But certainly the hallmark of Nelson was his accuracy, and you can see why as you watch the right forearm right here just trace that plane right into the ball. So we've seen Hogan and we've seen Player and Garcia and Nelson all moving their hands right into that shaft plane approach to impact.